reactions to the research document. We've all read it and gone through it, and would like just to get your reactions to it. And please allow me to just govern you a little bit, because I'm chasing the clock. Please just summarize your findings and your views on this. We don't have to go into the nitty-gritties per se, but maybe if you can just give me your summaries, 2 minutes each person. How's that? Fantastic. All right. I hope you won't kill me. We're just trying to catch up on the clock. So in 2 minutes each. Allow me to start with, from the Herald, Chief Isdo Kulamombe. Sir, let me just hand over this microphone to you. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's very sad that the editors who make the publications tick are given 2 minutes each. And the politicians who talk and talk so many minutes. How sad it is. But anyway, we are trained to shorten stories. And so yeah, from I'll just do a very short input from that. In that the reports are fine. They are picking on many things, but there is a very big missing link. Who is making the media corrupt? Who is making the media corrupt? Who is bringing the brown envelope? Who is capturing the media? So it doesn't only go to editors. At times editors don't even know what is happening out there. The brown envelopes go between the reporters and the politicians. And in the line, they will tell you that no, there's another envelope for the assistant editor, another envelope for the editor-in-chief, but those envelopes don't get to us. We wouldn't want them, but we would only know. How then do you know about the brown envelope if it doesn't get to you? You see, that's where the issue is. So I think going forward, it's a collective action for all of us to come up with the media that we want. It must be a collective action. We must also not look at the media from a perspective of the private media and the so-called state media and everything. The issue of ownership is critical. Who owns the media, and then what is the editorial policy? Outside that framework, we will just be talking and talking. I think I'll end there for now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much there, Mr. Isdo Kulamombe. All right, so now let me hand it over to the Zim Papers Convergence News Editor, and that's Madam Phyllis. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm impressed by the report. It has actually highlighted what we've always been whispering, or what has always been whispered. And my reaction, maybe I will touch on the issue of sexual harassment. Everybody becomes silent. There is pretense. And it's very sad that the perpetrators are known, and in some cases they are protected. And I'm very happy to say for Zim Papers, we now have a sexual harassment policy, which was initiated and started operating in 2022, that's last year. And I'm happy to report that, although more needs to be done, I'm happy to report that is late, do I say late or early? It's about a month or so ago, someone was fired because they'd come forward of the policy. Yes, more needs to be done on the sexual harassment front, and I just wish the media and government could join hands and fight, a real fight, not pretend to fight. And then on the issue of the new media, I'm happy to report that the partnership, yes, the training colleges and the universities have not, as highlighted by the report, have not done quite well in training a journalist who is ready to use gadgets for the new media. But I'm glad that there have been partnerships. Like, for example, I think Zim Papers has also been beneficial for the partnership with Women in News, where they've trained journalists on the use of digital gadgets and digital tools to get our news out. So on that front, I think yes, more still needs to be done, but I'm happy to say at least we've started the baby steps and we are doing fine. And then I think what would be my final issue is there was talk of polarization, what. We have seen some spaces become no-go areas for journalists. It's unfortunate. I hope some of the politicians are still here or they have all left. We have seen political spaces that have been closed to media personnel because they are from media house X or media house Y. And for me, I would have loved better partnership so journalists can work in peace. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Madam Phyllis, giving us your perspectives and your ideas there. Now let's get to hear from the editor-in-chief from the AMH, Mr. Kulwani Nyati.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I spent some time going through the report, and I don't think 2 minutes will be enough to, but well, that's what it is. I had actually prepared a presentation, and I thought context was going to be very important in this discussion. And in terms of that context, I wanted to talk about what we do at AMH. When you attend some of these meetings, at times you leave depressed because you get a feeling that the industry is gone. And I wanted also that we get a perspective that, well, there's something that is being done, and there are institutions that are really trying to make sure that we professionalize the industry, and that also that Zimbabwe is not an island. Some of these issues that come up is not that Zimbabwe as a country there's something that is wrong with us. So maybe I'll be quick with the background that I wanted to give. AMH, I know all of us know what it does, the publication that it runs, and the teleradio station that is represented by Blessed here. We subscribe to VMCZ because we believe in self-regulation of the media, which focuses on building democratic practices through regulation by the media itself. AMH took the initiative to establish an editorial advisory board, which is chaired by a prominent lawyer, Much Masunda. And in that board, there's a practicing judge, Justice Chinengo. There's a medical doctor, there are 2 civil society leaders, and also there is an industry executive, IFGAZIBA, former Standards Association of Zimbabwe, MD. And on top of that, the company is an ombudsman, a practicing judge, Justice Chinengo, also sits on that editorial board. The editorial board serves as a sounding board for editors. They check our content all the time. They pick things that at times escape us. I remember yesterday there was an email from Masunda. There was one of our page 1 story. I think there was a mistake about a Latin term. Is it CCC seeking a declaration? I don't know how to pronounce it. And then we said it was seeking a. Was it? I think the word like it was. They were seeking. Is it an order or something? That's how the story came out, but it's different from the Latin term. So that's the benefit that we have from. So now we can reflect in terms of learning in the newsroom. And also last year, AMH, I think around this time, we started advertising making our readers aware that if they get approached, but because now, because of different platforms that we can have journalists going around masquerading as AMS journalists, seeking bribes from unsuspecting people. We've been running in all our publications almost on a daily basis, adverts warning people that when they see this, when they come across this, the channels that they need to, they report to an independent body, to the ombudsman. But interestingly, since we started doing that, no one has come forward to say our journalists have come to them seeking bribes. Maybe just going to the report, and I'll run through it. Some of the themes that I just had an interest in was the rise in complaints that VMCZ is handling. And I said to myself, is it because our standards have fallen so badly, or because our people are now more aware of the mechanisms that they can resort to when they feel their rights are violated? Perhaps it's something that we should be celebrating instead of beating ourselves about. And then on the election reporting, I think polarization is something that has been spoken about. But of course, there are issues of access that perhaps during the elections, some parties didn't want to be covered by other publications, maybe because of historical reasons. But I think from this election, there was an improvement. I think ZANU-PF became more open because previously they are the ones who would bar us from their rallies, but with this previous election, things changed. Regulatory framework, I think this is something that has been spoken about. And then in terms of ownership, well, there are always controversial issues about. But if you remember, I spoke about AMH setting up an advisory board which insulates editorial from owners. I don't get to interact with the owners perhaps until we go to board meetings or to editorial advisory board meetings. I think in the report there's a specific issue about Gerard Mlosha buying a stake at AMH. And I'm sure this is something that you people, you read our newspapers. If you see the platforms that have been asking questions about the recent FIFA ban on Zimbabwe, which was caused by the SRC, I think the publications that have been more critical than anyone else are AMH publications. Because Gerard Mlosha doesn't get to know what the AMH is going to publish the following day about what is happening in football. And we've been very critical about that. And that can tell about that, how ownership affects the professionalism. In terms of salaries, well, I think the world over, the issue of COVID really affected. I think for our publications from during the COVID times, I think print runs, like we had to literally stop printing our newspapers at some point, and it went for several months. And now we're on a recovery mode. And interestingly, during COVID, people had shifted into subscribing to our e-paper. But from the information that I get is that now people are now demanding the physical paper, which is now a premium product because we have to, the e-paper is cheaper because it's cheaper to produce. For the e-paper, I think the price of the e-paper is double of the price of the copy that you get on the streets is double of the e-paper. But people are actually now, subscribers are now coming back, and our print runs are actually going up. And also the issue of salaries. We will know that the biggest consumers of our products in terms of advertising and also in terms of subscriptions is the government. And the government still pays in Zim dollars, and that will explain why most publications are still paying their employees partly in RTGS and partly in US dollars. Because the biggest advertiser is the government, they will pay you in RTGS, and the subscriptions are paid in RTGS. Yes, we are getting something from the streets in terms of US dollars, and this is why the salaries are partly paid in US dollars. And I think this is something that is being corrected, and we'll also find ways of improving our sustainability. Things are going to improve. And I think I will stop there, although I still have a lot to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much there, Mr. Kolwani. All right, now we move to our Hstv chief, and that is Blessed Mhlanga. Your perspectives.
Thank you very much. So I'll just deal with a few issues that I think are important. The first for me is that most reports on the media tend to be very academic and sometimes lose, they do not speak to the real issues that happen on the ground. For instance, you would want to ask, how do we define polarization? You know, how do we say that the media is polarized? How do you arrive to that conclusion? Because where I sit, journalists move from state media and work in the private media, and they move back and so on and so forth without any problems, right? And there's an issue that my elder here Isidore spoke about, the issue of ownership. I think that is the issue that we should really talk about, because I know sitting in state-owned newspaper, right? They know the truth, they know the ethics. The journalists there are not unethical, but they cannot operate any other way. You know, they know that they have to balance the story. They also have to talk to Chamisa. They also have to do this. They know that, but they are not going to do it basically because of what? Because of ownership. So for me, it's not polarization. It's just a difference between the truth and the lies. And this is the issue. It's not about polarization. There's also a tendency of people saying that certain things have not been covered or are not being covered in the media because they have not read about them. Because their choice of media that they access does not cover those things. But it doesn't mean that they are not being covered, right? So, like one political leader here was saying that the issue of abductions have been ignored and they're not covered by the media. And you ask yourself, which media are they reading? Because these things are covered daily and they're spoken about. So the media does not cover, the report says something about covering ministers and elites, but I don't think it is the truth. I don't think that issue that was included in that report is factual. I mean, have you read the Standard Community, which talks, it's a whole section that is dedicated to talking to communities? Have you watched Hstv Voices? Every Friday we go on the streets and ask people to speak out their minds. Have you watched it? You know, have you gone inside the Herald and looked at community stories that they write? Apart from the front pages, of course, the front page is mostly probably their elites. But I know that the features desk of the Herald, Zimbabweans, they go to communities, to rural areas, and they cover and they allow people to be heard. So sometimes research maybe it also starts from a polarized position. I don't know, but then I'll talk to the issue about resources, media resources. Now, media does not have the availability of resources is scarce, and also the salaries are poor. But in the world over, people who are corrupt or people who receive bribes are not generally poor. I mean, we need to agree on this. The people that have received bribes are extremely rich people in most instances, right? You'd see a CEO of a huge corporate being fired because they received a bribe. Is it because their salary was poor? Even some of the journalists that we have heard who have been fired over receiving bribes, they have plush homes, they stay in Borodale and stuff like that. So for us to sit down and to try and justify bribe taking to poor salaries. In fact, those guys who have poor salaries, who have actual real poor salaries, the students on attachment, the GTs, because they have not even made their names in the industry and they don't even know how to get the big stories, are actually not even corrupt. But they're the ones who have the least salaries in the industry. And the guys that take the bribes actually drive big cars and stay in better houses. So I just wanted us to demystify that. And maybe just also to talk about, we need to understand, as journalists, I'm sure we've all studied and stuff like that, but there's something that is called the normatives of the media, right? The normatives of the media. If it is, if there's a problem at the media house in terms of control and in terms, we might know the ethics. we might know everything and still get it wrong, because those who control the system will always dictate in the manner in which they want it to be. In fact, most people say that the professional level in the newsroom ends at news editor level, right? Above the editor and stuff, there's a political appointments. It's basically because the owners will appoint people who they think will pull in the direction that they want. And I rest my case.
Wonderful. Please, let's give a round of applause for our wonderful editors giving us their very valuable perspectives and perceptions. Looking at some of the key issues. I hope our rapporteurs have managed to capture some of those issues. On reports tend to be academic. Yeah, we think we need to look at that more, because we are, as the practitioners in the industry, we're the ones who get to read these reports and think, okay, we're not quite understanding what lingo is being used there. It's very academic instead of being more practical. Some of the things that have also been raised, sexual harassment, needs more attention from our practicing journalists and editors here present. That all-weather question that always comes up: are we corrupt as a media? Have we been corrupted? Are we receiving those brown envelopes? And how best can we go about it? Thank you so much to our panelists that have been here. I don't know if there's anything very burning before I release you that you really needed to bring out before we get into the next panel. But these really were the perceptions. We just wanted to really hear their opinions of the report, what they saw, what they felt actually stood out in terms of the report. Wonderful. All right. Please allow me to release my lovely editors. Let's give them a round of applause.